All right?
All right.
All right, thanks everyone for coming. We know you're really busy with finals. As you can see, we've brought up a podium, we've brought up a piano, we've brought up a professor. Bud Brown.
You're... I don't know what to say. I'm very pleased to be here, and words of wisdom? I don't know. What do you say in the last lecture? Well, there's going to be maybe 4 or 5 parts to this here evening. First part, I'm going to let's call it First Encounters with Blacksburg and VPI, 1969. Then, after about 10 or 12 minutes, April 16, 2007, up close and personal. 3 vignettes about that you might not know about. And in keeping with the April 16th, I collected some words of wisdom. I counted them up, and there were 31, so I had to add another one. And so it'll be your choice. You can call out a number, and I'll read one of them when we get there. Of course, you don't know if I'm reading the number you called. And we'll do that for about 35, 40 minutes, maybe. And then we'll do something I do the last day of class. And what is that, Preston?
AMA.
AMA, ask me anything. You may ask me any question that you want. I don't have to answer. But okay. So how old did this start? So here's conversation. It's graduate school. Hey Bud. Hey Jim. You looking for jobs? Aren't you? Yeah. Have you got a position? Yeah. You might think about coming there. Where is it? Have you heard of VPI? I said, yeah, they play VMI on Thanksgiving. In those days, it was true. I said, do you know which it is? It's not the one where they walk around in uniforms, is it? Well, they do walk around in uniforms, but they're not that. This is a very dynamic place. They have a young president who's got a whole lot of energy, and it's building the place up, and it's going to give us the chance to get in on the ground floor. Okay, so I applied. I got a job. So, fast forward to early September 1969, all right? The mathematician, this sounds like a joke, you know. A mathematician, a librarian, and a network engineer get in a car and start driving. They driving on Main Street. They drive one way, and then they drive the other way, and they're driving up and down Main Street looking for something. They're looking for the downtown. They came from big cities. They didn't know where the downtown was. You gotta realize the population of Blacksburg, when we got here, was something like 7,600, exclusive for students, and that wasn't a whole lot smaller than the student population, which was about 11,000. So we're driving up and down. They're driving up and down. And the librarian says, you know, I think this is the downtown. Are you kidding? No, there's a corner drugstore. So I see it's a drugstore and it's on the corner. No, you idiot, it's called the corner drugstore. What kind of a place had I gotten myself into? And so the network engineer didn't say much because he was only 7 weeks old at the time. So, you know, he probably threw up on me or something. Joys of up and down Main Street. What was there here? In the downtown area, in the first block of Main Street from College, and there were 3 drugstores along in that area. We had 3 men's clothing stores. 2 photo shops, 3 bookstores. Wow. 3 gas stations a little further down the street, 2 hardware stores, 2 banks, 2 jewelry shops, all in downtown Blacksburg. Main Street was from Country Club Drive, from Airport Road all the way out to what's now called Old Brush Mountain. It's 2-lane road. There was no bypass. There was only a shopping center called Gables Shopping Center, and the lineup at Gables, food store called Mickermack, Sears, the Virginia ABC store, they were a little progressive, Sydney's, which was a women's clothing store, Gables Pharmacy, the A&P, which is another food store, Leggett's, and Firestone Tires. Whole bunch of things. Whole bunch of stores downtown. Only stores that remained the way they were the Greeks and the Lyric Theater. Carol Lee Donuts used to be right next to the Lyric Theater. It was a long time ago. It was a galaxy far away. It was a very strange place. The business is closed on Wednesday at noon. Scott, do you remember that? Yeah. Dr. Geller, who is my elder and better, has been here the same length of time. We settled in more or less. Let's talk about fast food, Hardee's, Pizza Hut, and Ray's. That was our time. Things are a lot better now. College had about 11,000 students. President was T. Marshall Hahn, this whirlwind, architect of incredible change, tremendous change. The student body was going to increase. He had got the state legislature convinced to put a lot of money into what was then VPI because it was going to become a great university and a honking big research factory. And he didn't say anything about football during the 1970s. It was kind of pathetic. But the student body population was growing by 1,000 students a year in those days. By the time he left, there were about 16,000. And they were hiring faculty left, right, and center. The year I was hired, the mathematics department hired 10 tenure-track people. They hadn't hired 10 tenure-track people in the last 30 years. Or did they? Maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe 20, I don't know. But, you know, the place was just bursting at the seams. But things were a little different. Lane Stadium, you know, the place that cost you an arm and a leg to get in there and so forth and so on like that. And they have teams that are usually, you know, routinely ranked in the top 20. By the way, the second 10 is a really good place to be because if you want to be top 10 football, you got to sell your soul to the devil. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. So be happy. Are you happy? Yes, say yes. Are you happy? Thank you. Okay. They haven't learned to rebel yet. Oh yeah, they have. Lane Stadium opens its gate at halftime in those days. Let anybody in, and they could walk in and watch Virginia Tech lose to the likes of VMI and William and Mary. And I saw both of those things happen. On the other hand, over in Castle Coliseum, there was this phenomenal season in 1972-1973 when Virginia Tech went to play in the NIT finals. In those days, the NIT was a big deal. Played 4 games, and they won those 4 games by a grand total of 5 points, beating Notre Dame on Sunday, St. Patrick's Day in New York City with an errant shot that Bobby Stevens rebounded his own shot and took a 15-footer and it just went in, and all of Blacksburg went crazy. That started an era of really good basketball up through and including Del Curry. All right. Student body was mostly white and mostly male, and the Virginia Tech Corps of cadets was a very large force at this place. It began to grow and it began to change. But 56 of the buildings that are on this campus were on this campus when we came to town. It was, a lot of the buildings were in place. Lee and O'Shaughnessy and Pritchard and a lot of the res halls had already been built. Central campus, Major Williams and Femoyer and Shanks and Monteith and Johnson and Thomas and Rash and Brody were all residence halls. Mostly Corps of Cadets. But that was the era the Corps of Cadets was dwindling. The Vietnam War was going on. From the drill field, these are the things, if you were standing there in 1969 looking around, you do a pan of it looking at Burris Hall. What you couldn't see, what wasn't there, that are there now, Slusher Tower, the bookstore, the 6-foot library wing, the one that looks like it comes from the University of Mars, Torgerson Bridge, and then you pan around. You're standing in the middle of the drill field, and you look up at Burris Hall, and then you look, bring your eyes down, and what do you see? It's a memorial. That wasn't there. Yeah. Let me tell you a few stories about that that aren't generally known or remembered. Room 211. Right? Room 211, Norris Hall, was the scene of unspeakable horror and carnage. Everybody in that class was killed except for one young woman who survived by playing dead under the bodies of her slain classmates, including the teacher, and including the shooter who killed himself. And we don't like to think about this too much, but 28 hours later, if it had happened, Jess Hurtis and I, in my crypto class, my combinatorics class. Crypto. I can't remember. One of those. Crypto class would have been the victims. We're lucky. A couple of things about that week. Do you know the story about how the original 32 blocks of Hokie stone got there? Anybody know that story? Okay, don't tell it, because I'm going to tell it. You've heard the story. Maybe, okay. All right, so, no names. Some people are sitting around on that afternoon. Hokies United. If you have those Hokies United t-shirts, there's an organization called Hokies United. They said, we got to do something about this. And some of them thought, we need a memorial. What would be a good memorial? Hokie stone. Yeah. You can't buy Hokie stone, right? Right. However, a lot of construction around here, isn't there? And one of them said, oh, That's what you say when you have a moment of clarity. And like MacGyver, he said, I got an idea. So he goes and picks up the phone, calls somebody. Hello? Hello, I know who you are. Can I ask you a question? Yeah. Talks for a minute. The other guy says, call you back. The callback person, by the way, was in the Virginia Tech administration. He will deny it to his dying day, and I don't blame him. I'm not going to mention him, or her, or whoever it was. Calls back. Hey. All right. You know this certain place? And he described it. It's a holding yard for some construction. Yeah. Listen carefully. Between midnight and 2 a.m., the chain across that bars the entrance is going to be unlocked. At 2, it goes back. If you are caught, I never heard of you. A little bit after midnight, they got in a rather massive pickup truck with 2 rather massive students who might have been football players, but they were built like football players, and they went over there on several trips. They acquired 32 blocks of Hokie stone and put them out on the drill field at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that memorial stayed there. Second thing I want to tell you about is the curious event that happened at Virginia Tech's 2007 spring commencement. The spring commencement, those of you who were there remember, it was threatening to rain. I mean, there were rumblings of thunder in the distance. And, oh no, we didn't want this to be spoiled because the 27 families of the students who were slain were going to be receiving the diplomas of the posthumous degrees that were being handed out, were being granted to these 27 students. And we did not want anything to happen. We were very worried about this. And along about the time the ceremony starts, this black cloud comes in from the west, where the weather was coming, and it parked itself over the east stands, and it stayed there. And I noticed this, and I said, it's not going to rain. That cloud is not going to let the rain in during the ceremony. The ceremony was about an hour and a half. That cloud stayed there for an hour and a half. The ceremony was over, everybody left, the cloud left, and the bottom fell out. Now, believe it or not, the final thing I want to say, you need reading glasses or a trombone.
We're good on time. We're good on time.
Yeah, we really do need to remind people of a whole lot more than we do. And I think that the admissions office and folks the recruiters, need to mention this when they're talking to prospective parents. And that is the people who held the university together that week were the students. Your predecessors 10 years ago were, I don't know how to say it, other than they were sensational. They were poised, they were calm, they fielded these questions from dozens and dozens of media members trying to get a bad word or two against the university from a student. One organization, let's say it was CNN, came in that afternoon, the afternoon of Monday afternoon, the 16th, and started asking students, started seeing if they could find somebody. They left the next day after being turned down by more than 150 students. They were brave. Some of them stayed. A lot of them went home, but a lot of them stayed. I sent out emails. I sent out emails to my students, and most of us did who were on the faculty then. Just tell me you're safe. That's all you have to say. I can't tell you how many of them said, I'm fine, and are you okay? Are you okay? Students worried about me. That was quite remarkable. The character that this student body showed me. A colleague of mine, Joe Pitt, professor in philosophy, and I were walking back from one of the tree planting ceremonies. And he reminded me, remember when we first came here? You know what we were saying about the students? This was mid-1970s. I said, yeah, I remember that. We remember thinking, they're nothing really special. Then we looked at each other and we said, boy, were we wrong. Your predecessors were quite remarkable. You should be very proud of them. The following year, very strange thing happened. The number of applicants for Virginia Tech's freshman class increased. Go figure. Is that remarkable? Yeah, that's remarkable. We have remarkable people on this campus. Oh, the balloons, that's right. On the Monday after, the week after the shooting, there was a ceremony out in front of Burris Hall. It was it was a ceremony, all I can remember calling it was the ceremony of the bells. There was this gigantic bell out, and at 9:30, it was mounted up there right at Burris Hall on the drill field side. A rather large and powerful individual grabbed the rope and rang the bell 3 times. And then somebody read something about each of the victims, a short paragraph. And the bell was rung, and a white balloon went up in the sky. Remember the ceremony of the bells? Yeah. Remember that? Yeah. 32 times. 32 white balloons. And they were floating off. The next thing that happened was one group of students released a large number of maroon balloons. And about a minute later, they released another large number of maroon balloons. And another minute later, they did the same thing again. And there's a funny thing about this. You know, the white balloons just wandered off individually. The first bunch and then the second bunch, and then waited until the third bunch got there, and then all the balloons went off together. You can't make stuff like that up. I was so proud of this university, the way they responded to this unspeakable horror. Oh, okay. A glass of Lived through a lot, this university, in 48 years. The Vietnam War, energy crisis, disco, Saturday Night Fever, the 80s, the arrival of Frank Beamer, played for the national championship, football. One of the remarkable things that happened, I just have to give another commercial, was that in the late 1980s, the University Honors Program was dead, effectively. And President McComas got a visit from some of the members of the Academy of Teaching Excellence, and they chatted about something, and the idea was that they wanted to revitalize university honors, and that the faculty would have a large say in this. And so it was that in 1990, a man from Georgia, whose mascot, Bulldogs, and he looked a whole lot like, he looks like a bulldog himself, named Charles J. Dudley, Jack Dudley, was appointed Director of University Honors. It's that kindly man. That's whose bust that was. In 18 years, just kept building up this program. And his motto was, "I don't see why the hell not." Now, what does that mean? A student would come in and say, "Dr. Dudley, can I try?" "I don't see why not." Over and over and over again. A recruit, a prospective freshman asked, "Dr. Dudley, is it possible to double major in engineering and music at this university?" And he turned to a young lady named Ashley White and said, "I don't see why not." And she looked over at her mother, and her mother smiled at her and said, "I told you so." She had applied to a whole bunch of big fancy schools, and they told her, "No, you can't do that." She came to Virginia Tech. I don't see why not. And that's the attitude that I love about universities, is the University Honors, and now the Honors Colleges, I don't see why not. You get together with the professors and work it out. Yeah. Did you do that? Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Huh?
I'd like to believe so, yeah.
Well, yeah, you did. Yeah. No, but don't be, there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's kind of cool. You know. This is a very unusual university. And from then on, after he retired, it expanded beyond anything that we would have thought of, and now we are about to become, or are we already, a college? Already about to become. Already a college. Dr. Embry, who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? Yeah, right. Okay. Words of wisdom. So, give me a number, Mogab, give me a number between 1 and 32. The tone of the organization is set from the top. Believe it. The tone of whatever organization you belong to. If you get to the point where you're leading, or you're a leader in any way, You're going to set the tone for the organization. Now, it's number 19 because it's not exactly the most earth-shattering thing. What's number 1? Cut the drama. What do I mean? Cut the drama. Don't get all shook up. You know, everybody's running around. Oh God, this is so awful. This is awful. Cut it out. I don't know what I'm going to cut it out. Think. Yeah. Every 20 minutes, think for a minute. Call me if there's any improvement. Shut your mouth and think. Okay, that's Dr. Embry, give me another number.
17.
17. Write it down. Ideas are cheap. Ideas are so cheap. And if you don't write it down, in 5 minutes, it'll be gone. Really. So carry something around to, this, ladies and gentlemen, is my smartphone. The software never fails. The connection never gets dropped. The data doesn't get corrupted unless I spill water on it. But if you spill water on your $750 phone, same thing will happen. Write it down. You get an idea, write it down right away. I don't care. Well, yeah, if you get an idea while you're driving, ask somebody else to write it down. Okay? Yeah. If there's nobody else in the car, pull over to the side of the road and write it down. Please. You won't be sorry. I mean, later on, if it's a stupid idea, you can say, oh, that was a stupid idea, which is fine. Most ideas are. And it's the stupid ones that actually end up working. Let's see. Steve, give me a number.
How about a prime number like 7?
What is the prime number that's most like 7? That is a Zen question. Almost a Dr. Garris, or are you a doctor now? A doctor. You're a doctor? Not yet. Are you a doctor? Okay, I got my shoulders hurting. Well, you're one of those doctors that doesn't help anybody, right? Yeah. 7. This is hard. Don't take life so seriously. It ain't no how permanent. Number 2, time on task. Time on task. You want to learn something? Spend the time. We tell our students, spend the time. You can't learn, I don't know, maybe you can learn some subjects by osmosis, but you sure can't learn mathematics that way. It's not hard, but it's complicated. And you got to understand about putting pieces together, whatever your disciplines are. Time on task. You want to learn to play the piano? I want to learn to play the piano. That wasn't any good. I wanted to learn to play the piano when I was a junior in high school. So I practiced 4 hours a day. Then we got a piano. I practiced 5 hours a day. I really, really, really wanted to learn to play the piano by ear. Why? Because there was a new classmate. And the classmate was this fellow from New York City. And he was very exotic looking, and he could play the piano by ear. And I noticed that at parties, the young ladies crowded around the piano. I said, Actually, what I said was, oh. And I learned to play the piano, and we became good friends, and he taught me some things about playing the piano. And then, of course, I realized that it wasn't his piano playing, it was his personality, but by then it was too late. I'd learned to play the piano. I've been doing it all my life since then, and it is just a great joy. But, you know, I had kind of left off practicing recently, and there were a bunch of things that I went and sat down at the piano, and I'd forgotten how to play. And so I started practicing again. I picked them up. Time on task. You know, if you want something to be, if you want to learn how to fall off a bicycle, or what is it, ride a bike or fall off a log, you got to practice. Fall off a bike, crash, fall off a, all right, I know about enough about that. Get your ego out of it. This is one of Jack Dudley's influences. Get your ego out of it, whatever it is. If it's the classroom, if you're a teacher, get your ego out of the classroom. What's important in your class? The students. What else is important in your class? The material. What's not important in the class? You, the teacher. You start out with that attitude, you'll go far. Get your ego out, whatever it is you're doing. You can have your ego in the process. That's fine. You want to learn the craft, sure, but not in the product. And I guarantee you, you'll notice. Everything is a choice. Sometimes you're in a situation, you don't know how to get out of the situation. You got two choices, scratch or suffer. Do something about it, or just sit there and suffer. It's a choice. You can make the choice. And there is one I learned from a very wise person. It is better to have your way than to have the credit. I'd rather have my way than have the credit. You want things done your way. In some sense, it doesn't matter who gets the credit, because the people who are working know who really did it. That sounds like an odd story. All right, one more. Let's see, what time is it? Oh. The more you look, the more you see. The more you listen, the more you hear. And a very important question, and whatever you're doing, is, what are my values? Think about that. What are you going to do with yourself? What are you going to be? What kind of person you want to be? Think about your values. Follow a career path that will not be in conflict with your values. You say, why am I saying this to seniors? Well, because you're not 73. You're a whole lot younger than 73. Or maybe older than 73. Yeah, right. Don't get in your own way. A lot of people find something that matters to them, but they can't achieve any kind of success because they keep tripping over themselves.